Hello there and welcome to our English news edition, coming to you live from All 24 News. Coming up next. 18 massacres in 24 hours and countless casualties from relentless Zionist bombings in Khan Yunis and Deir al-Balah. The World Health Organization sounds the alarm on the imminent collapse of the last hospitals in Gaza. Algeria acts on ICJ decision and Hamas welcomes Algeria's council meeting proposal, while the EU sees court decision as crucial to preventing genocide. Lawsuit claims U.S. president conspired with the Zionist entity to exterminate Palestinians and supporters, stage sit-in in Blinken's house, and global protesters condemn Zionist aggression on Gaza. And Biden limits U.S. liquefied gas exports for environmental reasons, while experts are calling it a political move for domestic reasons, cautioning it could impact Europe's quest for energy independence from Russia. The details after the break. Hello again and welcome to the details. First off in our news, the Zionist forces committed 18 new massacres, resulting in 174 deaths and 310 injuries in the last 24 hours. Since the beginning of the aggression, Gaza has seen 26,257 Palestinians killed and 64,797 injured. Khan Yunis witnessed 28 fatalities, with 9 killed in home bombings. Gaza City and southern Gaza reported 6 deaths. 2 more were killed in Beni Suhaila, and casualties arrived at Al-Aqsa Martyrs Hospital after bombings in Deir al-Balah. Additionally, 2 died in Rafah's Al-Janain's neighborhood. Still with the same file, the World Health Organization issued a stark warning on Saturday, expressing concern about the imminent collapse of the last operating hospitals in Gaza due to the ongoing heavy Zionist bombardment. Doctors Without Borders also confirmed the complete breakdown of the health system in Gaza, emphasizing the dire situation. Here's Zahra Farjani with the details.
After over 3 months of relentless Zionist aggression on Gaza, hospitals in the region are facing a looming humanitarian catastrophe. The Nasser Medical Complex in Khan Yunis is on the brink of collapse, and the World Health Organization has issued a stark warning about the dire situation that urged the evacuation of hundreds of patients and health workers from the premises.
As firing intensifies around Nasser Hospital in Khan Yunis, Gaza, hundreds of patients and health workers have fled. Currently, 350 patients and 5,000 displaced people remain at the hospital. The hospital is running out of fuel, food and supplies. The intense firing in the vicinity continues. Access to supply to the hospital remains challenging. We appeal for an immediate ceasefire so that we can replenish urgently needed life-saving supplies.
Last Friday, the hospital was inundated with injured individuals and those seeking refuge. A video released by the WHO depicted chaos at the hospital entrance, with people being treated on the floor and bodies being brought to the hospital yard.
We have a major shortage of medical staff. We have less than 10% of hospital staff that are working throughout the war. Medical equipment in the hospital is almost non-existent, of course. The simplest things in the hospital, such as painkillers and anesthesia tools, are not available. We are trying our best to deal with patients that arrive, and we are trying to keep them alive. We are not trying to treat them as we were doing before. We are just trying to keep them alive.
We are suffering here. There is nothing available, no milk formula, food or medication for children. The hospital is packed and there are no doctors to treat the patients. And even if medication was available, there are no doctors available.
The challenge at Nasser Medical Complex is undeniable. Delivering essential health services to patients and providing shelter for thousands of residents has become impossible. This adds further strain on the last operational hospitals in the Strip, with most of them rendered out of service due to Zionist massacres.
To the latest development on the ground, the Palestinian resistance successfully shot down a Zionist drone conducting an intelligence mission south of Gaza City. Al-Quds Brigades, the military wing of the Islamic Jihad movement, shared a video of the downed drone. Additionally, video scenes of clashes between Palestinian fighters and occupation soldiers in southern Gaza, particularly near Khan Yunis, were published by Al-Qassam Brigades, the military wing of Hamas. They also displayed a video of seizing a Zionist Evo Max T4 drone. Al-Qassam Brigade sent a message warning that if the Netanyahu government continues the war on Gaza, it may result in the killing of Zionist prisoners in their possession during army raids. The UN Security Council convenes on Wednesday evening to discuss the International Court of Justice's decision urging the Zionist occupation to prevent potential genocide in Gaza. Algeria, for its part, has requested the meeting to enforce the court's ruling on the temporary measures imposed on the Zionist occupation. Sofian Kenturi reports.
Algeria has taken an important step by swiftly calling for a UN Security Council meeting to discuss slapping sanctions on the Zionist entity for its ongoing atrocities in Gaza. This move aligns with the recent International Court of Justice decision that stripped the occupation of its illegal immunity. In solidarity with the South Africa plea, Algeria, an active Security Council member, is pushing for a strict enforcement of the ICJ decision.
The permanent mission of Algeria to the United Nations has received instructions from the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, to request a meeting of the Security Council at the earliest opportunity to give binding force to the ruling of the International Court of Justice regarding the interim measures imposed on the Israeli occupation.
The upcoming meeting, set for next Wednesday, is part of an initiative led by the Algerian president. He sought international judicial intervention due to the numerous crimes committed by the Zionist occupation in Gaza, all falling under international humanitarian law. For the first time in 75 years, the occupation authorities face accusations of committing genocide in Gaza. This could lead to unprecedented international isolation and clashes with the international judicial bodies.
You know, our aspirations and our demands are high. We live under brutal occupation for the past 75 years, and we call for ending occupation eventually. Today was a good first step. We wanted to see more of a ceasefire rather than only or restricted on humanitarian aid, and call for Israel to commit not to commit genocide in Gaza.
Amidst the ongoing Palestinian suffering at the recent ICJ decision, Algeria, under President Abdelmajid Tebboune's directive, emphasizes its unwavering commitment to championing justice and accountability on the global stage.
Hamas praised Algeria's request to the UN Security Council to implement International Court of Justice decisions. In a statement, the Hamas movement called on the Security Council to take the necessary measures to ensure that the Zionist occupation stops its practices against innocent civilians and supports the just Palestinian cause. The Palestinian Ministry of Foreign Affairs sees an immediate ceasefire as a practical step to enforce International Court of Justice measures. They emphasize that the ongoing war challenges the court's decision, leading to systematic destruction of Gaza, targeting hospitals and causing deprivation of basic needs for citizens. Palestinian ambassador to the UN, Riyad Mansour, said it was a historic day after the announcement by the International Court of Justice in The Hague of interim steps in the case brought by South Africa against Israel regarding the enforcement of the Genocide Convention in the Gaza Strip. Let's listen.
It is a historic day, and we are in close collaboration and consultation with South Africa. In fact, we met with them in Kampala at the level of foreign ministers, and they instructed, and we agreed with them, that once the ICJ adopt the provisional measures, the two delegations of the State of Palestine and South Africa will coordinate in New York as to what needs to be done.
UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres stated that the International Court of Justice decision on temporary measures regarding the Zionist occupation's alleged genocide in Gaza will be forwarded to the UN Security Council. Guterres emphasized the binding nature of the court's decision on all parties involved.
The Secretary General recalls that, pursuant to the Charter and to the statute of the court, decisions of the court are binding, and trusts that all parties will duly comply with the order from the court's order under the statute of the International Court of Justice. The Secretary General shall without delay transmit notifications of the provisional measures ordered by the court to the Security Council.
Still with international reaction, and this time the European Union asserts that the International Court of Justice decision against the Zionist entity is binding for the involved parties. In a joint statement by the European Union Commission and Josep Borrell, the High Representative of the European Union for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy, they call for the complete, immediate and effective implementation of the court's decision.
2023, Hamas and other armed
The European Union confirms that it will continue its support for the International Court of Justice, the main judicial body of the United Nations. The decisions of the International Court of Justice are binding on the parties, and they must abide by them, and the European Union expects their full, immediate, and effective implementation.
The U.S. Center for Constitutional Rights has filed a lawsuit against President Biden's administration, saying that they are plotting with the Zionist occupation in Gaza's genocide. In a hearing in Oakland, California, plaintiffs accused Biden, Blinken, and Austin of complicity. They claim the administration violated the 1948 Genocide Convention by supplying weapons. Judge Jeffrey White called it a challenging case, and the lawsuit aims to force the U.S. to cease support for the genocide. The Justice Department argues the court is overstepping constitutional bounds. This comes after the World Court ordered the Zionist entity to prevent genocide in Gaza, not mandating a ceasefire, but delivering a legal setback for the entity.
Charging the Biden administration with the genocide of our...
Every single day, we're losing hundreds, and this is why we keep fighting. This is why we keep fighting. I wish I can say that a heavy weight has been lifted off my shoulders after testifying, but no. We gotta keep fighting and holding this administration accountable.
Similarly, protesters set tents outside the home of U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken in Virginia, condemning the American stance on the Zionist aggression in Gaza. Using musical instruments and whistles, they accused Blinken of involvement in what they labeled as Zionist terrorism, demanding a ceasefire. Banners were raised, slogans in support of Palestine were chanted, and the American position on the Gaza situation was condemned. The demonstrators pledged to disrupt Blinken's peace throughout the weekend to ensure he does not enjoy a peaceful sleep. And on Saturday, large demonstrations erupted in several Western capitals, condemning the ongoing Zionist aggression in Gaza. Thousands showed solidarity with Palestine, marching in Berlin, Vienna, Odense, Rotterdam, and more. They called for a ceasefire, humanitarian aid for Gaza, and urged the prosecution of the occupation for its massacres against the Palestinian people.
Human rights should be respected because it's a matter of humanity. They speak a lot about numbers and Hamas, and they compare this to a war. But this is not a war, it's an extermination. Palestinian people there have stones and nothing else, while they are being bombed, as if it was raining. They're murdering an entire population, and it must be impeded.
To other developments now. On Saturday, American forces conducted an airstrikes in Yemen following a Houthi attack on a British oil tanker in the Gulf of Aden. The U.S. Army reported destroying an anti-ship missile aimed at the Red Sea, posing a threat to commercial and U.S. naval vessels. The Houthis, for their part, acknowledged the airstrikes in Ras Isa, Hodeidah, by American and British aircraft. In this context, a senior White House official revealed that the U.S. asked China to use its influence with Iran to halt Houthi attacks in the Red Sea. During discussions in Bangkok, National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan raised the issue with Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi, who stated China was discussing the matter with Iran. As you followed in the headlines, President Joe Biden's administration has announced a suspension of issuing licenses for new liquefied natural gas, that is, the export facilities. This move is seen as an attempt to appeal to green voters, but raises concerns about potential shortages of natural gas supplies, particularly those destined for Europe. Here's Salman Asib with the report.
The United States, the leading exporter of liquefied natural gas, is temporarily halting the development of new export facilities, an action applauded by the Biden administration as a crucial step in addressing the climate crisis. Scientists and environmental activists welcome the review, which excludes already approved but unbuilt plants and makes exceptions for national security emergencies.
The Biden-Harris administration is announcing a pause on pending applications to export liquefied natural gas to non-free trade agreement countries from here in the United States. The department's pause will remain in effect until the agency updates key economic and environmental analyses.
Under the plan, new export application would undergo an unspecified length review that takes into account climate and broader environmental and economic impacts, potentially jeopardizing over a dozen planned facilities. However, Rawashita, founder and director of the Vessel Project, contends that these facilities are not in the public interest.
Living in a community that smells like rotten eggs and chemicals, I know that these facilities are not in the public interest. But this pause is not just a minor achievement. It is a significant milestone. It sets the stage for potential rejections and slows down the progress of these projects.
While President Biden has previously praised U.S. liquefied natural gas exports, he faces significant criticism from environmental groups. They argue that the liquefied natural gas is a major contributor to climate change, citing concerns over methane leaks and the energy-intensive process used to liquefy gas.
That's part of what this review is all about, is to understand what are the implications of LNG. We've started to learn more about leakage rates at different parts of the supply chain, upstream, midstream, downstream. We've started to learn a lot about what happens to LNG as it's chilled and then shipped overseas.
Last year, the United States surpassed Qatar and Australia to become the world's top supplier of liquefied natural gas, with 7 operating terminals capable of producing up to 87 million tons annually. The U.S. can meet the combined gas needs of Germany and France.
To other world news now, French farmer unions are persisting with their protest movement, expressing increased anger as they find the government's announced measures insufficient. The head of the National Federation of Farmers Unions, the most represented union among farmers, stated that the statements from Prime Minister Gabriel Attal did not address all their demands. Here's Islam Said.
In a heated protest along the A20 highway, furious French farmers set tires and waste ablaze on Friday night. They accused the government of insufficient support, unfair competition from neighboring countries, and burdensome agricultural standards. French farmers remain resolute in their protests, with nationwide demonstrations continuing on Saturday. They assert that the government measures have fallen short of addressing their demands for improved pay and living conditions.
I'm here to denounce all the costs that we have to cover on our farms, because it's getting more and more difficult, since the prices of food products are not matching them.
I'm afraid for my future. Today I'm young, but I'm thinking in 10 years, will half of the farmers be retired? In 10 years, will I have strength to be able to continue to feed the people? And will we still be up against it like we are today?
Meanwhile, a silent march in Beauvais paid tribute to farmers who lost their lives, some tragically due to the stress of working conditions.
The suffering in the agricultural world has to stop at some point. It frankly disturbs me that people who get up in the morning to feed, to work, to do their job well, that one day, at a given moment, they end up making a suicide attempt or put an end to their lives.
The French Prime Minister's administration backtracked on plans to cut subsidies on agricultural diesel and introduce additional measures to ease financial and administrative pressures on farmers. Despite this, France's largest farming union, FNSEA, declared an ongoing protest, with farmers maintaining roadblocks on key routes.
More stories making headlines around the globe in the News in Brief.
The Iraqi government announced that the Prime Minister, Mohammed Shia Sudani, sponsored the launch of the first round of bilateral dialogue between Iraq and United States of America to end the mission of international coalition in Iraq.
The U.S. State Department has announced it has approved the potential sale of F-16 fighter jets and related equipment to Turkey in a deal valued at an estimated $23 billion, according to the Pentagon, after Ankara approved Sweden's accession to NATO. In a news release, the State Department said Turkey will get 40 new F-16s and upgrades to 79 of the jets in its existing fleet. Colombia recalled its ambassador to Argentina for consultations on Friday after Argentine President Javier Milei called his Colombian counterpart Gustavo Petro a communist murderer in an interview posted on YouTube by a journalist. Colombia's foreign ministry released a statement saying Milei's comments violate the deep ties of friendship, understanding and cooperation that have historically united Colombia and Argentina.
Continuous snowstorms over the past few days has caused significant disruption to people's daily life and travel in Niigata Prefecture of Japan. In Minamiunuma city of the prefecture, many road sections are now covered with an average depth of 1 meter of accumulated snow.
Algeria's National Theatre, Mahidine Bishtarzi, hosted the debut of Sahrawi National Professional Theatre with the play Al-Khatwa Al-Akhira, or The Last Step, which highlights the importance of resisting colonialism and standing against oppression. Osama Ayadi went there and brought this.
Algeria's National Theatre, Mahidine Bishtarzi, played host to the inauguration of the National Professional Theatre of the Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic this Saturday. The event, featuring the spectacle of Al-Khatwa Al-Akhira, The Last Step, was presided over by the Algerian Minister of Culture and her Sahrawi counterpart.
The honorary show of The Last Step today represents the announcement of the official launch of the Sahrawi National Theatre with the accompaniment and support of the Algerian government, and this confirms the steadfastness of the Algerian position toward just causes and the Sahrawi cause.
This collaborative between Algeria and the Sahrawi people allows the exchange of artistic experiences and knowledge sharing among performers. The initiative, led by Algerian theater authorities, seeks to elevate Sahrawi theater onto the global artistic platform. It's not just about art. The show is also to reiterate Algeria's steadfast support for the Sahrawi people in their quest for justice, standing against Moroccan oppression as the last colony in Africa.
This kind of programs has a strategic dimension, contributes in the liberation and resistance, and enhances the status of the Sahrawi state to prove the existence of a people with culture and identity and who is fighting for a legitimate cause.
The play Al-Khatwa Al-Akhira is about making the world aware of the Sahrawi cause. Through various ways, it aims to shine spotlight on the challenges faced by the Sahrawi people.
This work will also be in international events because there are a lot of people in solidarity with the Sahrawi cause, like intellectuals and even countries who support the Sahrawi cause and people. Regarding the fact that the Polisario Front is fighting for a legitimate cause and a cause of fighting colonialism, Algeria and its artists are in full solidarity with the Sahrawi cause, and we try to establish the National Sahrawi Theater even.
Theater, a powerful tool for expressing resistance throughout history, is back in the spotlight. Through these performances, the Sahrawi people express their strong determination for independence and self-determination, starting an artistic journey that began at the Mahidine Bashtarzi Theater in Algeria.
The end of our program. Thank you for watching and take care.